Dun, dun, dun. Hello, everyone. My name is Jamie Black, the founder of Wildcraft Play School. It's an honor and privilege to be here on the traditional territories of the Comox First Nations peoples, the Pentlach, Aixen, Sasitla, Satlut. Just want to send a blanket of gratitude to all of the First Nations peoples who have been here long before us, who are here now, and will be here long after us. And my hope is that this reaches out to all those folks in a good way and offers some support. And I'm here with Carolyn Gelano, and it's an honor and privilege to work alongside this curious creature. And so we're just going to take a little while to share some of our thoughts about what it means to be a behavior support person. And this conversation within the Heart Skills series is specifically around communication skills. So we might just crack open a can today that we're probably going to spend more time on many sessions with. So Caroline, do you want to maybe sort of set the theme for this?
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, communication skills is a whole can, so we can crack it open just slightly.
Yeah.
But in this specific setting, we're talking about fostering and modeling healthy communication skills between learners and in their social skills building, right? Which is often a point of interest and growth support that comes up for a lot of children and youth in many different settings, and particularly when supporting individuals with diverse needs. Sometimes many need some support in learning and experiencing and having repeated practice with how do we talk to each other? How do we engage with each other in a way that builds genuine and mutual friendships?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there was a little scenario that you were kind of recalling just before we got on the call here that you brought up as an example. Do you want to share? We just won't name names, but we see the scenario a lot, so it's helpful to kind of bring up one that you remember.
Yeah. So, for instance, there may be two friends or two youth in a group, and they're playing or interacting, right, and growing a relationship. And then at one point, one maybe says something or does something that as an adult, as a leader, you can see might be taken, might just be a point of friction, right? That if left alone could grow and grow and, lead to, a reaction, right? Or something that would hinder their relationship. Mm-hmm. So for specific example, it could be like two friends playing or interacting with each other, and someone saying something that might be like really direct, but a little bit lacking proper communication or compassionate communication, might say something like, or criticism, or, how come you can't do that? Or like, I'm trying to come up with a neutral example. Can you please jump in if you need to?
Yeah, it's actually related to like a tone of voice and the words that are said. So why can't you do that? Like the intonation is like duh kind of sound. And then when anybody get asked why can't they anything is actually, pretty edgy.
Yeah. Right. Oh, it's very good. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
In many scenarios, the person saying that most of the time is not coming from a place of trying to make the other person feel bad. Mm-hmm. It's actually this like practiced judgment experience that we all have either seen somebody else have happen with them or we grew up with it. And it's really hard to untrain.
Well, and it also sometimes needs direct instruction, right? So for some, over time, we may be able to learn and understand those skills of intonation and how to, and for some individuals, that can be a little more challenging to really read into and understand your tone of voice and how that communicates and what that communicates. So for a lot of learners that come in our circles, they may need that direct instruction of, hey, can you hear how that sounds? How would it sound said this way? Can you understand how saying it this way, right, might make someone feel? And then being really direct, it might make them feel this way.
Right.
Right? Is that what you mean? No?
Yeah.
Okay. How about you try this? You willing to try again? And then giving them that experience to actually try it out again. And what the point that I find I've seen in many, many, many different scenarios is when given that chance to try again, even in front of the other participant, in front of their friend, oftentimes, if not almost always, the other, right, the other youth or the other friend is usually really receptive to that.
Yeah.
Really. And it's like, oh, they're making an effort to try again. Yes, that does feel better. Right. And it repairs right away and like models with direct instruction and provides experiential learning that they get to practice right away.
Yeah. So I would say that the example that you gave is one way of doing it, where you say, I'm hearing this. This is what you said. Are you willing to redo? Like I either say rewind or redo. And then you gave an example of what to say. And another way of doing it is how I say, so this is what I heard, wah, 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 and I give the tone and I give the words that came out. And then I say, how could you do that differently?
Yeah.
And so it's a bit more edgy. It's harder to, so you need to have the capacity to be willing to try something on the spot, be put on the spot. It's a little bit edgy. It goes against our ego and it's edgy. And I find, and I don't know if this is the answer or not, but I find that I only have to do that once. And then that person starts paying more attention to their language and their tone of voice, especially in that kind of scenario. So for example, if it's like, so I know how to do math, but they don't know how to do math. And then I'm like, well, why don't you know how to do math? Why can't you just add? Why can't you just? That word just is also like bane of my existence, just. And then, if I were to intervene in this conversation, I'd be like, okay, well, I heard you say, why can't you just do this? Can you hear my tone of voice? Can you hear that it might not come across very kind? And can you hear that when you say, why can't you just, that whole statement right there would make me feel uncomfortable, and it might make them feel uncomfortable. So how could you say that differently? Let's do a little rewind, back the truck up a little bit. And then they'll be like, in the moment, I'm getting caught, but because of that, that interaction, and that it also does rely on us having a good relationship, a trusting relationship, that it's a safe place, that if they were to try again, even if they failed, they would know that fear of being judged and all that is like, it's not very strong, because it's a safe place. We've created a safe place. So that obviously opens another can of how do you create a safe place, which might
be a different conversation. Yeah, that's a different yeah, it's all interrelated, but assuming that it is a safe space, that there is a relationship built, and that we know that individual is ready and has the capacity to reflect and think of another way, right? Yeah. And they may not have an answer yet. You could check in that way, right? I like that, of how could you do that differently? How could you say that another way? And then if they can't come up with anything, say, well, are you willing, may I suggest?
Yeah.
Right. are you willing to hear a suggestion, right? And then they might be willing, right? So some might need a direct example to try word for word, right? Like a bit of a script. Some might not. Hopefully, the goal is that they can start to come up with those scripts themselves, and it makes it more meaningful.
Yeah, definitely.
But knowing, like, and it kind of goes along with what we've been saying in other videos, right? Starting off with like the least amount of intervention possible, and then kind of providing, oh, we need a little more, okay, or we might need a little more, okay.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I like that. And I find that that also in turn helps to build that relationship and trust and safety piece. Especially if our tone is very compassionate, if our tone is very, right, and you may need to insert in there, I have a feeling you didn't mean it that way, right?
Yeah.
To kind of acknowledge that it's a hard thing to hear, to correct, right?
Yeah.
Correct ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one example of how to model and guide communication skills, also kind of in a cricketing way.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is in another video if you'd like to hear more about cricketing. We'll weave it all together a little bit.
Yeah, so on that note, this is Heart Skills offered through Wildcraft Play School with myself and Caroline. We just get together on the weekly because we're running a youth program right now, and it's really fresh content that we can pull from a daily experience. Like, what's the nugget of the week? And just putting an inquiry out there, if anybody's interested, if you want us to talk about anything in particular, to send us a note directly on any of the platforms that you can access us through Facebook or by email. And yeah, just sharing that we're developing a resource library with resources like this, as well as other resources. And we're in the midst of relaunching Wildcraft Play training. So how to run your own live action role play is happening right now, if you're interested. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next week.
Catch you next time. Thank you.